invite the Executive Director of the Florida Turnpike, and also we welcome uh, Mr. Pagel, who is here with us today. And we had a very productive meeting, so Madam Director, will you please? And I know that even if we get one member more, there are two members that have to leave by 3 o'clock. So today, the chances are that we might not have a quorum. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Chairwoman. And thank you for allowing me the opportunity to come before the board. Last week and again today.
If you can, please, just for the record, for the benefit of the clerk and everyone, just your name and your address for the record.
My name is Diane Gutierrez-Scaccetti. I'm the Executive Director of Florida's Turnpike, headquartered in Ocoee, Florida. Again, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to come before you today. Last week and again today, I had the opportunity to meet with several board members to hear firsthand the concerns they have regarding Florida's Turnpike enterprise, and most appropriately, how it arose out of the May meeting where several amendments were presented. First and foremost, I'd like to say that Florida's Turnpike enterprise is a transportation agency. And while revenue collection is paramount, every project that we build will not be judged solely on revenue benefit, but on operational improvement and service to our customers. The enterprise collects about $700 million of total revenue, and our bond covenants articulate the specific flow of funds as outlined in this slide. And as if you see the slide before you, those are the specific buckets our revenue must flow through in order to be compliant. $250 million is our debt service payment. That debt service supports a work program of capital investment of $3.7 billion, of which $1.1 billion is in Miami-Dade County in this 5-year adopted work program. It is important to note that it is unlikely that any particular project pays for itself. For example, the southern piece of the Heft widening project is estimated at $300 million. The incremental revenue that this project will produce is an approximate average of $17 million per year based on a 20-year average. So we looked at 20 years, and it'll ramp up over those 20 years to become about $17 million on average. Please understand that the revenue of the entire system is what is pledged to support these critical projects. When I say that, what I mean is when we issue bonds, they're not project bonds, they're revenue bonds. And it is the revenue of the entire system that is pledged to pay those bonds back. Turning to some of the issues raised in our meetings the last week, I am pleased to report that the ramp at 152nd Street adjacent to Bonita Lakes will open tomorrow. Further, the existing double right turn lanes will be modified to allow for continuous movement in the most right turn lane into the new auxiliary lane that is being added to the existing 2 lanes on 117th Avenue between the Heft exit ramp and Southwest 152nd Street. It is our hope that this will begin to improve the traffic flow and alleviate some of your concerns. Regarding Bird Road, the northbound Bird Road exit ramp will be replaced with a new 3-lane bridge and be relocated about half a mile south of its current location. The southbound Bird Road exit ramp will be reconfigured to be 6 lanes with 3 right turn lanes and 3 left turn lanes. The 2 middle lanes will also allow for a straight movement directly into the hospital. Now to the 2 amendments that were presented last month but deferred. The first amendment pertains to the construction of direct connect ramps between the Heft and SR 836 operated by MDX. These direct connect express lane ramps will be meaningful to travelers who are making a through trip from the Heft to SR 36 and is fully supported of the managed lane network being developed with MDX and Districts 4 and 6 of FDOT. In addition, these will really benefit the bus rapid transit that I know is of interest to the Commission. This project is estimated at $50 million and will create several thousand jobs. The second amendment is a direct connect ramp, or partial interchange, if you will, at the Killian Parkway to the northbound Heft Express lanes. Again, this project benefits those who are making the through trip and will relieve some of the congestion on the local road system. This project is estimated at $35 million and also creates several thousand jobs. Commissioner Diaz, I have with me today Andrew Velasquez, who is our traffic engineer, and at the conclusion of my comments, he will more fully explain to you the Killian Road movement and why it is a direct connect to the express lanes versus a full direct connect to the express and general toll lanes. To answer concerns raised with express lanes previously approved by this board, these lanes were an operational change within already well-developed plans. As many of you know, the Heft widenings were on the books for a very long time. They were slowed because of the issues with the recession, and now they are back and active projects being advanced as quickly as we can. As a matter of fact, some of those contracts have been out to bid. The incorporation of these lanes were twofold. First, we wanted to make good use of our construction dollars while the roadway was open to pull in the appropriate technology infrastructure that would be necessary to dynamically price these lanes, and also to prepare for congestion that will occur in the future, because physical widenings only will ever address so much of our congestion, and technology is really what is the up and coming tool to manage congestion as we run out of physical space to build. As reported, the lanes will be dynamically priced with a base toll rate of 25 cents above the general use toll lanes. And it is interesting to note that that 25 cents can also be equated to the difference between paying a SunPass toll and a cash toll. If you go through a SunPass lane today, generally your toll is 25 cents less than if you were paying a cash lane. So there it is a consistent, a consistency with our pricing. While congestion pricing was considered, and congestion pricing or time of day pricing is when you raise the toll on every lane of the facility as opposed to only one. It was considered, but Secretary Prasad felt strongly that drivers deserved choice, and that to raise the toll for all commuters during peak hours was a hardship, as they have no choice but to travel during those times. In addition, the Turnpike was involved in a congestion pricing study funded by FHWA. And in doing that study, we conducted focus groups both in South Florida and in Western Florida, Central Western Florida. And it was fairly consistent that drivers are not in favor of time of day congestion pricing. They do not want to be subject to higher tolls simply because they are forced to drive back and forth to work. In our most recent borrowings, we did not include express lane revenue, as we took a very conservative position. Florida's Turnpike Enterprise is the first turnpike toll system that will introduce express lanes. Thus, there is no information upon which we could model what the use of those express lanes would be on a toll facility. And so in order to be conservative and not overstate our projections, we did not make solid projections of express lane revenue. We truly are looking at those more for congestion management today. However, once those express lanes are operational, we will be able to track that revenue, and we will be happy to report back to you at that time. Those lanes will have separate gantries and separate technology and separate identifiers. So as we are using those lanes, we can report back at regular intervals to the Commission as to what the actual revenue being produced in those express lanes will be. It is my goal to gain your trust. I will continue to make myself available to you as necessary to address your concerns, and schedule permitting, I will attend your commission meetings quarterly. I'd like to be here every month, but we are also in Tallahassee every month, as Secretary Pago can tell you, and sometimes your meeting dates conflict. But I will try to be regardless of whether or not we have an agenda item for you once a quarter in case you should have questions of us. Last week, we met with Chairwoman Sosa, and I believe we had a very good meeting. We have developed a plan that where we will provide Chairwoman Sosa a map of the Turnpike and District 6 facilities so that she may look at where you have critical points of interest in terms of congestion, and make certain that we're either addressing them in larger projects or perhaps be able to put them on our books as new, smaller projects to ensure that Miami-Dade transportation infrastructure is satisfactory to the board. I believe this will go a long way to strengthening the relationship amongst us all. And Chairwoman, with your permission, I would ask Andrew to just step forward to address Commissioner Diaz's concern with the Killian Parkway ramps that are one of the amendments that at some point you will be able to hopefully to entertain for us.
My pleasure. Go ahead.
Sure, Commissioner Diaz. The interchange at Killian Parkway was actually.
And add this for the record. I'm sorry that
Sorry.
I bother you every time, but I have to follow that
Sure.
protocol.
Name is Andrew Velasquez with Flores Turnpike in Pompano, Florida. As I was mentioning, the Killian Parkway interchange was actually studied several years ago during the project development and environmental study to widen the HEF. When we were looking at an interchange at that location, we were looking at it in the past as a traditional interchange that connected only to the general purpose lanes, no express lanes. As you know, when we try to build interchange projects, we want to allow for operations to be acceptable throughout the design year. In order to accommodate all the traffic at that location, we would have a very substantial interchange that could potentially require a right-of-way. As such, we decided not to move forward with that interchange concept as it stands to connect to the general purpose lanes. Then the idea came up about adding express lanes on the heft. And as an express lane only interchange, we're able to limit the design so that's in the center of the median of the Turnpike. Also, the traffic volumes are much less because they're only express lane customers. And that way we're able to accommodate the traffic demand at that location, not overburden the arterials at that location, but still get the benefit of diverting traffic from the congested Kendall Drive interchange to the north, as well as 120th Street to the south. So we think as an express lane interchange, it accomplishes all the goals. It gives people access to the express lanes. It doesn't overburden Killian Parkway itself. We're able to have acceptable operations at that location, and we're able to alleviate the adjacent congested interchanges. I hope that answers your questions.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Thank you. No, not quite.
Okay.
What it does is give me an explanation as to the need of what you're doing, and that's fine. That's at least an idea of what was a concern as to the first very part of the questions. And it wasn't just me; it was several of us. But yes, I was the one that kind of worked for. First and foremost, Madam Executive Director, thank you for meeting with me today. Very straightforward, and I really appreciate that. With that said, my colleagues, as we recall last time, the key issue was that what was being presented to us was a project that was told of a specific amount that yet wasn't specified as to the true amount of the project. As to the length and devotion of the project, they still had to design and build, so we weren't noticeable as to what exactly it was going to be. If I'm off on any of this, please correct me. So that is part of the understanding. My goal is to try to find solutions to something that has been ongoing. So we understand that you're going to be bringing, if somebody could put that map back on of the MPO presentation that the executive director did of that particular area where it's going to highlight the route of the managed lanes. And it's my understanding that off of 104th Killian Parkway, you're going to be putting in 2 ramps to head north to alleviate some of the traffic on 88 and again on 120. Am I correct so far?
Correct.
But what you're going to be putting in is not to truly alleviate just the traffic. You're going to alleviate the traffic by putting that strictly into a managed lane. It's not to have the option of being able to go to a managed lane or not. I know the secretary was that. Thank you for showing up today too, sir. Mm-hmm. The issue that we understand is you're trying to get the best you can for what you're providing. The design for that, you quite develop it because it's design built. You're going out for an RFP for that. Am I correct, or you have that done already?
No, that's not done.
It's not done. We have preliminary concepts that we've developed, and we're reviewing it.
Because it's, and I went by that area. I didn't see the space that is needed to do it. But again, I'm just a little Cuban refugee trying to decide which way I go here. But based on that, with lots of friends, yes, sir. The issue that I is a couple. One is there is no choice. You have to either go there in a Spanish lane, and that way you're stuck in this all the way until 836, which this board voted, I think, in a unanimous form to go ahead and do the managed lanes because it was an option for the people to pick. This has no option. Either you get in the managed lane in this particular section or you have to go to the two others, which in a way there is an option because you could either drive further one way or go back another and then get on. But then again, it is only in a managed situation. That's one. Two, the cost of it, there was some numbers thrown around to us last time, but they weren't specific to the amount that did those numbers get certified?
The estimate for that particular ramp is $35 million
35 for each ramp or both ramps?
for the project. So
Okay,
it's,
Ramps.
for both
well,
ramps.
there's two amendments. There's the ramp at 836, the direct connect from Hef to 836, which was the first amendment, is 50 million. And then the ramp from Killian Parkway to the managed lanes on the Hef is 35 million.
So we're looking at approximately somewhere about $90 million.
$85 million investment that is above and beyond the 1.1
Well, I said five because
billion.
of cost overrun, you put the
It's-
percentile.
It's above the 1.1 billion I referred to earlier.
Okay,
These are additions.
so we're looking at close to, and this is, I want you to really understand that this board had last time, and I myself still have it. I don't know about my colleagues that I hear from them, but we're looking at close to $100 million in a said project. I understand, and it's to facilitate to make a managed lane type system. You're starting it back at,
Just north of Snapper Creek.
that's
Temple
not yours,
Drive.
Commissioner Moss, or that's yours, right? It's between yourself and Zapata or Bell? Zapata. It starts back there and then it ends up in my district in 836. Is solid, to be on. First and foremost, the key question that this board had in board member Gutierrez, and I think the chair and several of us, and Commissioner Moss also, was the amounts of the monies that are put in to this area by our citizens and the amount of monies that we get back in project. I explained that to you over there. You told me you still don't have that information, and we'll get that sometime in work in progress to move forward. But as we approve these projects, I have a dilemma when I'm trying to see how much monies that we actually generate in Turnpike. And then I asked you guys, because when Secretary Pego came with the idea of I-95, and when that was brought to our attention, we also came in with an estimated amount of revenue. Then when we did the okay to do those managed lanes on I-95, we don't have any estimated type of revenue because you're very straightforward and told me in the meeting that this is the first of its kind in the nation in a turnpike facility, due to the fact that you have a paid toll system and then a managed lane system. So I still think in I-95, yes, we don't have a paid toll system, we have a managed lane system, but we could take the best of all worlds that we have from MDX and them and come up with some kind of an amount. Because we're going blindly on this. We're approving close to $100 million. And again, and I'm sorry, and as Executive Director, you weren't there last time, but it broke my heart, and I said it to you earlier, and some of the people that were up here that actually drove to see what I was commenting about, when the Turnpike Authority built all those first quality type toll booths that spent millions of dollars, and then with a backhoe came and just destroyed them without even just picking them up and using them for something else or using the money. So my trust, I apologize wholeheartedly, but I don't have much trust, and especially when it comes to this. You're asking me to approve something kind of blindly moving forward, which we do a lot of that here sometimes. But at the same time, I don't see any revenues. I don't see any benchmarks. All I see is hard cost coming out from the citizens. So I really would like to have some of that to make we approve the managed lanes as a body, okay, because we understand there's going to be a choice and the citizens too have their right, even though that you're limiting already a paid right way. But Madam Executive Director, you were very well spoken today when you told me I prefer doing a managed lane as opposed to moving the tolls up higher in a particular time. I wholeheartedly agree with you. I think we'll be all tarred and feathered in this community if that ever happened. But you know what? I don't have a problem with the managed lanes. I do have a problem. You do have an access that's strictly that there is no choice, that you only have to be managed. I understand you could go down north or south and get on at that point, but that's my two colleagues that are both sitting up here, and that they know that area very well. That's one. But when it comes to my side of it, my problem is not so much on the managed lane as the leap of faith to move forward and not knowing the results of the questions that we asked that supposedly were going to be answered. And the key question this board had is how much revenue is being put in by this community, and how much revenue are we receiving in jobs and not revenue received, I apologize,
Value
benefits
contracts.
come back to this community.
Well, I do have something I can share with you.
Okay.
Since we've met, we've continued to work throughout the afternoon. And while I don't have the detail, but I will certainly get it to provide to the commission, we collect about $940 million of revenue from Miami-Dade County over the period of time that South Florida Equity's been in place. And in
The
that
140 million.
yeah, it's not, let me just check my notes. I don't want to give you wrong numbers because then I'll have to come back and I don't want to be in trouble with my CFO or anybody else.
I think
hold on one
my
second.
colleagues are going to look for is not to get it in pieces up here.
Well, I'm going to give you the aggregate total because I want you to understand it against what we're asking you for today. So from 1999 to 2012, the aggregate revenues have been about 940 million. And as of today, we're probably somewhere in the, we are over our investment. In other words, we've invested more by probably about, I don't know what the number is, a few hundred million. Especially with the work program we're adopting now of the 1.1. And we will send all that detail to Irma and her staff so that you can have it, and we will break it down year by year.
Madam Director, I'm not saying one thing or another. All I want to do is that when this board asks questions, and again, you weren't here, it wasn't, but you're the head, so we're talking to you. And like the chairwoman, it's very difficult. We need to get these answered and have it to the board members, especially, I know at least 4 people that are not here. They were very, very interested in this conversation last time. So this is something, even though we don't have a quorum, and I got to leave in the next 5 minutes, but I thought it was important to at least come here and be able to discuss this with my colleagues. I have, again, I would like to see all this because I believe that the number is greater. Maybe I'm wrong, and again, my little math might be off, but also how much is those managed lanes going to cost as make?
But again, and I have to say that I could come up here and I could give you a number or attempt to give you a number, but I have no data upon which to validate it. And you told me today, trust but verify.
I trust, but I verify.
I have to trust but verify, so.
My colleague all the way over there, same way, in the corner.
Thank you, Commissioner, and I know you have to leave. Let me announce and correct me if it's this proper. There are people waiting here for the MPO meeting, and we are taking a discussion that doesn't need a quorum. It's 2:59. I'm not going to have a quorum because if we haven't been able to get a quorum until now, then I will properly cancel the meeting at the proper time, but we will continue with the members asking questions to the executive director as we properly can. But those of you who came, we apologize to you, but we are not going to have quorum. Before I pass to Board Member Gutierrez and then Board Member Moss again, I had the opportunity of talking to the executive director. One of the things that I have requested from her, from the state, is a map of Miami-Dade County divided per district. So each one of us can know which are the turnpike roads, which are the MDX, which are the county roads, and which are the municipal. And from there, to give us the specifics on a fiscal year, these are the revenues that came to the turnpike. These are the revenues that came to the state, to FDOT, because they have different accounts, which is something that we need to learn. FDOT has X funding, and then the turnpike has another funding. And then from those yearly revenues, how much they have spent in project A in Bird Road and 836, project B in Eureka and Killian, project C in Biscayne to 216th Street, one by one in writing. Because what we want is to make sure that we work on that, that we have that complete report, that when someone comes over here and say, how much have the state spent on this road, from where? From FDOT designated funding by the state legislature, or from that specific set aside for Turnpike? So I just wanted to tell you what I have requested as soon as possible, because everyone should be able to see that. And she was kind enough, and Mr. Pego, to tell me that they will work on that and provide that information to each one of the board members in this table. So with that, Board Member Gutierrez, then Board Member Pons.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to follow up on the questioning that Member Diaz was addressing. You're saying that the traffic and revenue study is not available because this type of model, a toll within a toll, managed lanes, is the first of its kind. Okay, and I understand that. But in order to determine what you're doing, there must be something that you do have that determines how much revenue any particular project will yield. And so the question is this: give us the collections that you have on a tightening of a
$17
project.
million on average.
So that 17 million on that particular job?
That 17 million. First, so you understand, as I said in the beginning, we are primarily a transportation agency. So annually,
No, I fully
Mr.
understand.
Velasquez will provide.
I fully understand that. I'm just following the money. I want to understand the money, and
to follow the money, what we do is we do a needs analysis of where our hot spots are.
Okay.
And then based on that, we prioritize.
Okay. So
and then based on that, we do our traffic and revenue.
Okay.
So we have a traffic and revenue study.
So you do have one?
Of course we do, and it's available in our last official statement. We don't include express lane revenue in it as a subset. We look at the widening project, and the example I gave in my remarks was from Caribbean Boulevard to 874. That's a $300 million project. And on average, over the next 20 year, from the period it opens, the 20-year period after it opens, it will, on average, generate $1 million in incremental revenue over and above what it generates today. And I don't have that number broken out because we look at revenue on a system-wide basis. We don't do project bonds.
I understand that, but $17 million incremental is a whole lot of money, which if you leverage it, it means a whole lot more money.
Mm-hmm.
So now the question comes back to, now that we've established a number, we know how much more this widening will yield in incremental, and you're saying incremental, so I understand it, over and above what it typically collects today. What does it collect today?
We don't look at our system that way. We look at the
I
system
understand
generally.
that you don't, but given that I'm on the other side, I have to look at, you produce a construction. What is it going to yield? I understand that it's going to be great benefit to the user because it's going to move traffic. But at the same time, there's a later effect of what it means. It costs me more to use it, but there's a great effect down the line as to improvement. So I'm just trying to get a number. Now I know it's incremental 17 million.
Correct.
You don't know the other number, please get back to us, give us the number. I have 3 more questions. I really would love to learn your toll rate policy. your CPI policy? Because I do understand there's been a lot of concerns that your CPI policy is actually 25 cents automatic every year, if that's the case. And basically for your dynamic pricing or whatever it is, I just want to understand the number. For your dynamic pricing, what policy, what model do you use that basically says what's the variable? Because I take that managed lane on I-95, and sometimes when it's at $7, that isn't the right time to take it. Sometimes when it's at $6, that's not the right time to take it. Maybe at $2, that is the right time to take it.
Well, let me answer
So learning
CPI
more,
first.
and maybe the public would like to know. So
Let
just
me
to get
answer
us that
CPI
info.
first. CPI is not a quarter. Our CPI increase for SunPass customers and toll by plate customers will be an additional 2 cents on their toll. So if you were paying 25 cents today, you will pay 2.1% of your, that's what CPI was, that's what will go up. Maybe a penny, it may be 2 pennies, but that's all the toll will rise on July 1st. Okay, and it's not rounded because it's electronic and there's no need to round it. That's the beauty of electronic tolls. It doesn't have to be rounded to a nickel or a quarter. So it depending on where you are and depending on what your toll is, it is a 2.1% increase. So if you pay $1, you're going to pay $1 too. So that is our policy in terms of CPI. In the managed lanes, again, as I said, the rate will be similar to the difference between SunPass and cash. If you go in the managed lane, the base difference between the general toll lane and the managed lane will start at a quarter, and it will be dynamically priced following the same algorithm that is used for I-95 Express.
What
You still have the
is
floor.
that? Thank you. What is
It is
that
a
rhythm?
15-minute, I believe every 15-minute change in the price based on traffic inside the managed lane. So every 15 minutes, they will look at the number of vehicles in the managed lane based on speed and based on proximity between cars, and they will look at whether or not there's an adjustment that needs to be made, and then the traffic engineers will determine whether or not to make that change in price to keep that lane as free flow as possible, given other traffic conditions.
Is there a cap on that?
$7 today at
So-
the I-95 Express. We have not done, we're in the process of doing rulemaking, Turnpike managed lanes.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Board Member Moss?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I had a chance to meet with the Secretary and the Executive Director this afternoon, too, so I appreciate that opportunity. In reference to the ramp at Kendall Drive and at 120th, when you're looking at putting in these express lanes, and I guess I heard toward the level of the turnpike itself, you aren't eliminating the on-ramp lanes from Kendall Drive or from Southwest 120th, are you?
No,
Or north?
honestly, Commissioner, your customers will experience nothing different than they do today. They will access the roadway the same day. What we will be doing is pulling away from them the traffic that wishes to get in the express lane, and so giving some relief to those two interchanges. Is that a fair way to explain it, Andrew?
Exactly.
Very similar to the way the managed lane is meant to work. The managed lane is meant to pull out of the general traffic population cars that are making a through trip, that do not want to get on, they do not want to get off, they do not want to weave. They separate those folks out. And the way the magic of the managed lane is to eliminate cars that don't have to make several driving decisions. They're not getting on, they're not getting off, they're not weaving, they're not moving lanes. You take those folks out of the mix, it makes room for those who are making the more local trips.
So these are two new lanes, but you don't displace any of the existing
No,
lanes
sir.
going north, at least.
No, sir.
I know there's something about south, but going north at least.
No, sir.
Those particular on-ramp at 120th and at 88th, both of those on-ramps will continue to exist.
Yes.
So those who would choose not to use the express lanes can take those lanes as they can take today.
They would not have to change any of their driving habits.
Okay. Now, another concern was a concern in reference to if the projects are approved and the improvements are made and the bonds are paid off, the project is paid off, what happens to any additional revenue in those express lanes? Where is that money spent? Or will it have to be spent based upon the current law?
For the Turnpike system, the statute required, and for all managed lanes, but we're slightly different than Secretary Pago's lanes on the non-tolled roads. As we pay the project off, we will look at the gross revenues of the express lanes, specifically the express lanes. We will allocate our operations and maintenance costs and net them out, and the net revenue coming from the express lanes must remain in Miami-Dade County on a Turnpike system project, because we are, again, self-funded, and those revenues have to stay within the Turnpike system. I can't, for instance, go off the system to do a project with Secretary Pago away from the Turnpike. But I can do ramp improvements. I can make other improvements to the Turnpike system to benefit the users. And I think with Chairwoman Sosa's suggestion on the map, the goal really is, once you have the map, is we have offered to her also to come out and visit with you on the roadway and do a field inspection of areas where you have concerns with regard to congestion, to determine if there's anything that any of our projects are currently going to do or could be added to our projects to improve the Turnpike system to relieve congestion. That is part of this whole mapping project that the chairwoman had asked us to undertake. And so we are willing to commit the time to come out here with you. Those revenues from Turnpike Express lanes could be used to fund those types of improvements.
So
they stay in Miami-Dade County in the Turnpike system.
okay, so they don't go to
Central Florida, absolutely
to
not.
District 5 or District 4
No.
and that sort of thing. They stay
By
with
statute, they can't.
Okay, by
The
statute.
difference is on the Turnpike, they have to stay on the Turnpike system. But again, that means we could do, I know that Chairwoman Sosa had addressed with us some concerns at 152nd. If what we're already doing as part of the widening isn't enough around Metro Zoo, there may be other projects that we can do that improve access to and from the Turnpike or as part of the Turnpike project. Those revenues could then be used to fund something like that. Or Commissioner Zapata had concerns on Bird Road. Well, we're doing some work at Bird Road, but for instance, if it is, those revenues would then be turned over into those projects, can be used. But that express lane net revenue must stay in Miami-Dade County on the Turnpike system.
And that's different from the formula that's used for gas taxes that go to Tallahassee and then come back.
Yeah, I couldn't speak to how that works. And it's also different in South Florida equity. This is specific to the county. For us, South Florida equity is a different calculation altogether than the express lane revenue.
But that was the point I was trying to make in reference to South Florida, the equity.
Right. So
part
I
of it.
couldn't even take this money and take it into Broward or West Palm Beach. It has to stay here, or Palm Beach County. It has to stay here.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. But the money that have to stay here is the money from the managed lanes.
The net revenue, correct.
The net
For
revenue.
operations.
And that is only fair because the residents here are the ones who are paying for that.
Correct.
But then the other money.
The other is today divided in accordance with South Florida equity. And what I was saying, Mr. Diaz, is you had asked for specific information and we will be sharing that with you.
I hope, because I'm very concerned about those numbers.
Yes.
Board Member Zapata and then Board Member Gutierrez request. Oh, okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I want to dig in a little further. Just before I move on, in your chart, you have some of those projects mixed up. I think the top one and the second one should be flipped around, if I'm not mistaken. If you could, somebody could put.
Oh, they could have been posted inverted.
Yeah, so the first one, I think,
It's upside
could really
down.
be, yes. And then the Bird Road to 836 should be the top one.
Mhm.
So 100% of the net revenue of managed lanes would stay in Miami-Dade County.
Yes.
So what are the expenses that would be associated with that?
Typical maintenance expenses is
And-
you resurfacing, striping, and then some additional expenses that would be delineator replacement and the operation of the variable message pricing for.
Now, would that be of only the managed lanes? So
Yes,
So to cover only the expenses of the managed lanes. So what
Correct.
we're not doing is then using the managed lanes to cover some of the expense of the regular lanes, of the tolled lanes.
no, I promised you I would be transparent. So the way it works is we don't, if we're gonna resurface 4 lanes, we don't say, well, this lane, if you used $1 million, well, this lane costs 17 million to resurface, and this one costs 23, and this one costs 40. We allocate across the 4 lanes. So, because it's the only way from an accounting standpoint you can effectively do it. So we will allocate a piece of the maintenance. If we were resurfacing all 4 lanes, we would
So let's
allocate
just say,
a
yeah,
piece.
just so that I understand. So you have 4 lanes. Let's say one is a managed lane and there's 3 regular toll lanes
We do not take revenue from the
from the
managed
managed
lane
lanes and spend
to
it
support the 75 million we'd have to pay to
on
pay
the
the
regular
others.
lanes.
Mm-mm.
Okay, so then so at the end of the day, 100%, whether it's gross or net, would remain in Miami-Dade County.
It's net, and it will.
the
Oh,
managed.
sure, it's all going to remain in
Okay,
Miami
so that's okay.
County.
That's what I wanted to be clear.
But it can, but what is allocated to other projects would be the net after we take care of that managed lane. We
Allocated to
maintain
other
the managed
projects.
lane,
Yes,
and then the net revenue from that can be
will be
allocated to
allocated
other
to
projects.
Miami-Dade County projects. Is
Right?
that correct? Is that the way the statute was?
Correct.
And when was that statute approved? So
I couldn't give you the date. Was it?
Mr. Pega, would you happen to know?
I think it was modified a few years ago, 3 years ago.
I think I was around. I hope I voted the right way on that. Okay.
Actually, the way it's written right now,
Yeah.
through the chair, just for clarification, the executive director pointed out on the Turnpike, those revenues are reinvested back into the Turnpike system. For the state highway system, like for I-95 Express, the excess revenues have already been identified to be put on our 826 I-75 project to help advance that one. That was $20 million of additional revenue that we're moving that money around to advance projects. So there is a benefit to the total transportation system through the managed lanes, not only day to day, but also by advancing construction.
Yeah, and I think our interest is basically that if we pay that money stays here locally and addresses the local needs.
Correct.
Explain to me what was the policy or what was the thinking behind the policy that kind of brought this managed lane concept to Miami-Dade County as opposed to another county?
Well, it is being done in other counties, Chairman, Commissioner. It's also being done in Hillsborough County. It's being done on new widening projects, right? We have the widenings here at the Heft, but we also are widening the Veterans Expressway. We will also be putting in express lanes. We are getting to a point on our systems, certainly on Veterans in Hillsborough and on parts of the Heft, where there is no ability to further do physical widenings. We are going to have to come to terms with how we continue to manage congestion. And today, technology has advanced to the point where we can use it as a congestion management tool. Not unlike Commissioner Diaz said earlier, how unhappy he was that we built these gantries and toll plazas and then ripped them down. And there was tremendous uproar, upheaval about the fact that we did that. I think you would be equally unhappy with me if I dug up the roads, widened them, did all this work, and 6 years later came back and dug up the roads to pull through the technology infrastructure for those managed lanes. So we are putting them in today. And we are putting them in because as we continue to try to modify driver behavior, to use those managed lanes, to see the benefits and uses of them, and certainly in times of peak traffic, to give folks an alternative, it seems prudent for our construction dollars to incorporate all that we might need in an area to manage future congestion. And so the veterans, in Hillsborough, there is no more widening to be done. On parts of the Heft, there is no more widening to be done. So we are trying to make best use of our construction dollars and get that work done today. It is also much less disruptive to the traveler who's not constantly faced with consistent MOT. You know, we're out there one day widening, lanes closed, contractors out there. We take all the cones and all away, poor Bob's Barricades is out of money. And then the next thing, I come from New Jersey. I laugh up. I want to meet Bob, who's from Bob's Barricades, but at the end of the day, he's everywhere.
Everybody wants to meet him. Trust me.
Right? But at the end of the day, even for me as a driver, I live in Claremont, and there's a project on 50. not wait for them to be done. I would be very disappointed if 3 or 4 years later they come back and they put all those barrels in again, because now they're gonna pull through the conduit so they can put in some technology to manage traffic, whatever it might be. So we're really trying to limit our time out on the roadway, get as much done as we can with the money we're spending, because if we do that, ostensibly that gives us more flexibility later to do other projects.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. And I really appreciate your presence here today and meeting with all the commissioners and the members of the MPO and answering the questions. We hope that we're going to have the follow-up.
We will.
And that lack of communication between MDX, the SunPass, the Turnpike, the SunPass, the only people who have been affected because of that have been the public. And we are, at the end of the day, here trying to make decisions to work together for their benefit. This is not a matter of your territory, my territory. I want to get in yours, you want to get in mine. No, no. This is our obligation to make sure that we all deliver the best to them. So thank you, and we will continue following up.
And I don't know that I will be able to be here with you in July if you should take these amendments up. We have an important conference out in Denver on all electronic tolling and becoming regionally interoperable with some of our other local states, regional states.
We'll wait for you.
Then I'll come back in August. But at the end, but I appreciate it, and I do want to tell you, I owe a lot of gratitude to MDX. We worked closely together over the last year, and I hope what this will be is, we'll all be working towards the same end. And I look forward to getting the map to you and then seeing what projects you would like us to focus on.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate that. Before